Hello everybody, thank you so much for joining me in my conversation today. I hope you've enjoyed my recent content, particularly my interview with Liana Demira, who was homeless at one point. If you haven't seen that, please do check it out. It's an amazingly inspiring story. Well, she's an amazingly inspiring woman, and I loved having the opportunity to chat with her and to be able to share that conversation with you as well today. I just got back itchy nose. I just got back from a trip to Bangkok with my work, where I saw a lot of things that were churning up some interesting feelings in me actually, and I'll probably be discussing some of those in a blog over on my website jontytan.com, and please do take a moment to read some of those over there too. And I'm looking at some content that I might be able to travel over to Thailand for a 24-hour, 48-hour sort of trip to be able to cover some interesting documentaries on there. And I'm very excited to be sharing lots of different interviews and thoughts with you on this channel over the next few months and years perhaps. But today I wanted to discuss a topic with you which I found to be very triggering, but I wasn't sure what it triggered. Let me chat with you about it. One of my friends shared this with me. It's a post by who I think is an old MP, and it said this: "The woman in front pressed the button repeatedly, expecting the green man to appear sooner. As the road was empty, I crossed the road against the red man. I exercised common sense. The woman followed Singapore culture." It made me feel uncomfortable because it made Singapore culture seem like, and I'm sure it was meant to be provocative, but it made Singapore culture sound like it was not sensical. Like people didn't use their brains and they just went with it. I get this sometimes, and I think there's an element of our rules in Singapore, perhaps the way that we honour leadership, perhaps the way we fear consequence. But there is an element of that. Let me give you an example for us. When we finally got a chance to move here in 2020 during the whole COVID thing, we had to update my daughter's passport. Now, in order to be able to get into Singapore at the time, we not only needed our visas to come in, our working visas, but we also needed to have a prior permission from the government to actually come into to enter into the country. My wife, my son and I had all received those, because all of our passports, our initial application forms were put together. My daughter's, because she had updated her passport, hers went in at a different time to ours. And so what happened was that the three of us got permission to come in, and she didn't. Which obviously does not make sense. She was a 5-year-old child who was not allowed to enter the country, whereas the rest of her family was. I mean, there wasn't a lot of sense in that. Someone was looking through the system and went down probably by date order instead of looking at familial connections. And I understand at that time COVID was throwing in a whole heap of different problems that we were having to deal with as society, and we're having to learn on the go. So I get that. But this one with crossing the road was an interesting one. Generally, I think I would move. I think if the road was clear and it was a sensible place to go, I'd go across. However, there are times when there's a road crossing right near the school in which I work. I wouldn't cross that road if there were kids with me. I wouldn't want them to feel like they could take that judgment into their own hands if they were quite young, because their sense of judgment might not be accurate at that age, and I wouldn't want them to think that it's something that they should do. So I'd wait for them. Obviously, I've got 2 kids of my own. Most of the time, we will wait with them until the green man comes. And so I kind of get where this guy was going with the whole thing, and he was saying how the lady could have exercised more common sense to go. I didn't like the way he compared it with Singapore culture in such a derogatory manner. I think actually I think there's value in waiting. I love that she was impatient enough to press the button loads of times, but I feel that it was probably provocative deliberately, but I wondered what you all thought. As you know, if you've been following my journey for a while, was born a Singaporean, moved to Britain. I've only returned 3 years ago, and so I'm still learning about how I feel about society here and what I think we as Singaporeans, I know my passport isn't Singaporean, but I call myself a Singaporean, what we feel and what we do and the reasons behind it. So I'd be very interested to see what you think. Would you cross that road? Would you not? Like I said, I think I probably would, but I understand the need to wait and the need to follow the rules. Perhaps you might want to draw the line at some point, you know. Where do we draw the line at breaking rules? If we're not supposed to cross the road when it is a red man, we're not supposed to do many other things that are set out for our own safety. Is there a line that needs to be drawn? Are there laws and rules that we're okay to break, and there are others that we're not? And is it a common sense thing? My friend who shared this with me is from Colombia, and he shared with me a common sense attitude in Colombia, which was this: if I pay the police an extra amount of money to get something done quicker, then I'll do that because it makes sense. I give money, I get something quicker. Now the problem with that is that outsiders will look at it and say that it is corruption. Well, it is corruption from what we know corruption to be, but that is a common sense in Colombia. Where does the line get drawn for common sense? Should it be drawn within rules, or should it be drawn within how we feel and how we think? Please do drop a comment, engage, and let me know what you think. A short one today, but a good thought, and I hope you have some interesting things to share with me this time. See you soon. Bye bye.